really important taboo the government needs to break, and that's its reluctance to talk about the source of the threat, which is the Communist Party in the People's Republic of China. And this is going to be, I think, a real challenge for the Albanese government. They have what they call their stabilised relationship with China. And yet in just a few weeks' time, in March this year, we're going to have announcements about a huge amount of money being spent on nuclear-powered submarines and on other urgent defence acquisitions. Is the government really going to try and sell this to the Australian people by saying it's not about China? So that is a taboo that I think that has to be broken. And then more generally across the country, there's this great Australian national complacency that everything's fine. There aren't, frankly, enough people worrying about our position in the international environment. And so news about the growing risk of conflict, I think, is going to come as a shock to a lot of Australians. And governments will need to explain this to people, have a conversation with them so that it doesn't just come out of the blue. The Australian taboo of never talking about difficult issues, I think, gets in the way of thinking about what we need to do now to strengthen our defence position.
The one that immediately leaps to mind, of course, is nuclear weapons. We need to have that discussion. At the moment, it just keeps being pushed off the table. Now, having that discussion without a whole lot of conceptual infrastructure and capability is hard because, it's no point getting nuclear weapons at the moment because we don't have the strategic or conceptual structure about how you do deterrence properly, and we certainly don't have the skill or industrial base that we need. But it is a discussion worth having.
The Australian people deserve from their government a strategy that explains how they're going to protect this nation, not just in a military sense, but economically, in the cyberspace, and a whole range of different areas that are covered by national security. So I think a transparent, auditable national security strategy that a lot of people can contribute to or critique is a really important missing layer in our country.
I think a taboo that we might have to consider is what happens the day after a war in Taiwan? What does that mean for the region and for Australia? We need to consider not only whether we will be on the winning side, but also on the losing side. What would happen if China were to take Taiwan? Would it mean that Australia would acquiesce to a Sino-centric order? Or would it actually mean that we would have to start thinking about our defence even more than we did before? We'd also have to think about economically how things would never be the same again. We wouldn't simply be selling iron ore again to China in a post-Taiwan world. And I think we would have to think about the drawdown of American troops, say if there was a loss in Taiwan, and the possibility that our neighbours, countries like Japan or South Korea, might actually choose to acquire nuclear weapons themselves, and maybe in the future whether we too might have to consider that taboo.